The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
Today is Tuesday, June 12th, and you're listening to The Benjamin Dixon Show. As I'm sure you can tell, Ben is out today. This is going to be a Matt and Max episode. How you doing, Max?
Good. How are you?
I'm all right. If this is your first time listening to one of our guest hosting episodes, I'm Professor Matt Sienkiewicz. You might hear me sometimes as a guest of Ben's to come in and talk on issues of media or international politics. But this is going to be just me and Max going through what we think is interesting today. We've got a few fun things later in the show. We've got the breakout sensation of our episodes, what blogs are saying with Josh Moss. We also have an interview with Terence Moore, who's a great columnist and sports commentator. He's going to talk to us about the intersection of sport and politics these days. We should probably, just because this is a current events show, we should let you know what current is for us. And it's Monday. It's Monday evening right now. It's about 10:20, and we're sitting here recording in Brookline, Massachusetts. What is on your mind as we sit here right now, Monday night?
About an hour ago, I got a New York Times push alert telling me that Trump and Kim just shook hands in Singapore.
Whoa, my mind blown.
Yes.
So you could say that well, I make that as a joke, but like that kind of is the thing, right? The meeting is the outcome.
That's basically all that's going to be accomplished, practically.
You know, we're going to be so embarrassed when we wake up tomorrow morning and find that various diseases have been cured, there's a denuclearization and everything. But presuming that none of that happens, it certainly does seem that the main thing that's going to happen is the happening.
So you don't think that this meeting is historic?
Well, I mean, it's historic. It's definitely historic, right? I mean, an American and a North Korean leader meeting face-to-face, that's historic. That doesn't make it significant.
Yeah.
I mean, it could become significant. I guess it's likely to become significant either way, although, well, that might be a stretch. Maybe not likely. It's possible that it could become significant for a good reason, become significant for a bad reason. The most likely outcome is probably somewhere in the middle where it was noteworthy that it happened. I mean, who knows, right? I'm not sure where it goes. I do know that the fact they're shaking hands is not enough. Put it this way, I will not be reading the live blog tonight. I'll wake up in the morning and see what happened. Yeah,
so I think one of the things that I've seen talked about a lot with regards to the summit is that this will somehow legitimize Kim Jong-un, somehow make him a more prestigious international world leader.
Yeah.
I was wondering your take on that.
I don't. That's not my take. That's not my take. Legitimize him. I mean, he's the recognized leader of the country, right? That's not at issue. His strength, at least in terms of military might, is pretty considerable. I mean, I guess, what you're saying that the fear is that Trump shouldn't take the meeting because it legitimizes Kim too much, or...
Yeah, and that this is supposed to be some special prize to be earned.
Oh, I see. So the idea is that Kim has won or something because he's gotten the meeting. No, I don't. I mean, whatever. To some people, that might be the case. To me, personally, I think that argument almost works better on the Trump side.
What do you mean?
Well, so, what is Kim before and after this? Before and after this, he's a leader of a country who, if you have any interest in human rights record or, sort of the values that at least many of us around here think are important, he completely, fails at those. Although, there's a certain amazing element to his survival, I guess. None of that changes, right? Trump, on the other hand, has, I think you can make an argument that he's got two sort of varieties of international meetings that we've seen so far. One where he meets with democratically elected liberal leaders, in which he looks like a moron, right? Like the G7 stuff that we saw unfold, right? Where he looks like a petulant child and he's like performing.
Throwing tantrums.
Right, so there's that. And then the other one is when he meets these sort of dictators who clearly have the power over him, right? Like, so he goes to Saudi Arabia and he meets with these guys, and who clearly he seems under their spell or something, right? And so that's what we get. This would be a third thing. This would be a thing where he actually has something to do,
Yeah.
Right? Like there is an objective which is like is not predetermined necessarily. And two, this is somebody who he can stack up against and he can look like a legitimate interlocutor. You know, that's the way that I see it. That this is an opportunity for him to engage in a way that he hasn't before, which will kind of you know, I hate the now he's presidential sort of move, but to a certain extent, it's a pitch he can handle, right? And he hasn't gotten that before. When it comes to Kim, I don't see it as transformative. I think he ends up the same place he started. I guess that there's some prestige if he goes back and can say that he, you know, brought the Americans to their knees because they flew across the world to talk to him. I guess fine, but he's already the dictator of a country. He's already acknowledged with the various threats that he can put forward. I just don't see it.
Yeah, I buy that. So nothing's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, you know, as the cliche always goes, but particularly in the last couple of years, right? You know, you make a prediction just to sound like a fool, right? No matter what we say. I mean, you know, what's going to happen? I don't know. I guess I'm a little bit. So, what's going to happen? Obviously, we don't know. I think it's more. You know, even Trump. It's somewhat interesting. Trump himself has set up the idea that you can't get this done in one meeting, which is a very non-Trump thing to do, right? Like his thing is to set outrageous expectations, have them not come through, and declare victory anyway. Like think of like the Obamacare rollback, right? The House eventually voted for it. They threw a party and then
failed in
the Senate, right? And so it's surprising to me that he didn't set up some sort of bar that he would say he achieved and then call victory. He's actually been saying that it's going to take a while, which is really, I think, a cue that we are looking at very little.
Well, he said that, but then he also said that he would know within 5 minutes whether or not it was going to be a success.
Right. Well, so are you suggesting that he might be internally inconsistent sometimes? But
no,
that one's actually salvageable, right? Because like, let's say he were this brilliant negotiator, it's like a great chess player, right? Like a great chess player knows they're going to win the game after like the fourth move or something, but it still might take a long time to defeat a good player. So in theory, these could both be true, right? Okay. In theory, he could like look at him and say, "Aha, you know, this is his tell." It's like the end of a poker movie, right? Where eventually, like they wiggle their ear or whatever, and then the game, like you bide your time. In theory, that could be what Trump's talking about. Odds are he's just talking out of both sides of his mouth, right? That said, I think the fact that he even bothered to set up the idea that this thing is long term is enough to make me. Well, that plus what I said before, that I think that he gets a whole lot out of just standing there and like, you know, not. I think it's. You want to hear me go out on a limb? I think it's unlikely he embarrasses himself in this context. Wow. Well, he's already gone out and called this guy, you know, whatever. We don't need to go through Kim Jong-un's various violations. Was committed. I mean, killed his uncle like in an airport with a right. So with a nerve agent, right? He's already called that guy honorable. Yeah. So that's one way in which I think I'm going to be right. I think that once you call the guy who killed his uncle in the airport with nerve agent honorable, then you kind of like that's a good vaccine against further stupid things to say. And the second thing is that again, like this is again, I think it's a pitch he can handle. And then all he has to do to get out of it is to get through the meeting, and he could even. Because he's not talking to Justin Trudeau, who's going to be up there, you know, all cool and calm and sort of lay it out clearly. He's going to be whatever he says that's ridiculous. You know, Kim Jong-un will say something equally ridiculous, and I think that the embarrassment for threshold is the threshold for embarrassment is like pretty outrageously high. He also has just evacuated any sense that like human rights matter, that you know, I guess the much maligned liberal values that a lot of us still hold on to, like he's thrown those out the window. He spent a long time with the G7, you know, setting that up, right? I mean, he threw that tantrum at Trudeau, and that had the function of sort of, on the one hand, kind of just setting him up as a tough guy, but it also set him up as somebody who like does not care about sort of, you know, the sorts of countries that we would generally care about, right? The sorts of international traditions and engagements. So I think he set the bar appropriately low. That's my argument.
Yeah. And, I mean, this administration wants war with Iran so badly
they're really into
that we might actually avoid one with North Korea so that they can have
have one with Iran. That's a good point. That's a good point. I mean, they also will. They also are they can say that the way that Obama did the Iran deal didn't work because they got to undo the Iran deal. And so this whole thing kind of ties together for them taking this brash, ridiculous approach to North Korea as sort of an overall way of just completely getting rid of anything that Obama had done successfully, not because it failed naturally, but because they forced it to. So it's a good point. This is not the war they want. They definitely want the war against the Muslim country.
Yeah.
That's not a coincidence if you look at who our Secretary of State is and whatever else. But I guess I'm predicting we wake up in the morning and the world is more or less the same kind of depressing place that it was when we finished this recording.
Yeah, something to look forward to.
All right, that's actually one of the more hopeful things that we've talked about on the show in a long time. Speaking of hope and optimism, we have the pleasure now of breaking out the first ever playing of the theme song for our segment, What Blogs Are Saying with Josh Moss. How excited are you for this song, Max?
Very excited.
All right, let's hear it.
What am I saying? I don't really know. I'm pretty busy and I don't know where to go to find them. But Matt's going to ask his friend Josh, and Josh is going to tell you about blogs. What blogs are saying with Josh Moss. Also with Max Thunder.
And as the now famous song goes, this is What Blogs Are Saying with Josh Moss. I'm joined, of course, by Max Thunder. Hey, Max.
Hello.
And from New York City, comedian Josh Moss. Hey, Josh.
Hey guys, how you doing?
I'm good. Good. I'm excited because we got to unveil the What Blogs Are Saying with Josh Moss theme song. Thanks to Sasha Stanton Craven for coming up with that. And in honor of that, I thought we would, for the first time ever, dip into the What Blogs Are Saying mailbag. How's that sound?
That sounds great.
All right. So from Nick from Fort Collins writes in and he asks, "Hey Josh, what are blogs saying?"
You know, that's a good question because it's honestly one I've been thinking about. This has been, I thought this was 2007 because blogs have been saying so much. We could do a lightning round today.
You want to do a lightning round?
I think we should a lightning round. I don't know if do kids remember what lightning rounds are on game shows? I don't know.
It's when you ask a lot of questions quickly, right?
Yeah, basically. I mean, I'll be honest. I don't have enough for a true lightning round. More just to say the phrase lightning round.
Okay. So how about this?
That's kind of a blob. I'm not really. Yeah, please don't make me do a real lightning round. But I think we will start with the story on Politico reported about two staffers of the White House who were recently fired. A lot of blogs talking about this. Recently fired, and they revealed that their entire job for the last year has been picking up pieces of paper Trump has been tearing up and pasting it back together to stay abreast of the Presidential Records Act.
Huh? So like in a spy movie or something, if after they shred it, you have to piece it back together. Except he's now when he's doing it, does he think he's getting rid of the evidence?
No, it seems that he's just ripping up paper. Just it's a habit. That's
like people who tear their beer bottle labels or whatever. So, but it's actually illegal for him to do this, is what you're saying.
Well, all records that are not purely personal have to be kept. So everything he writes down, he rips up. He ripped up a letter from Senator Schumer, and he just ripped it up into tiny pieces. And these guys spent days on that one letter, getting it back together. So they could send it into the archives.
Are blogs considering the cost for this? I mean, these people are salaried employees, right?
Oh, these were well-salaried employees, and they were kind of confused and upset that they were spending their days taping pieces of paper back together. And then they were also summarily fired last month, both of them.
Did they not put them together right, or did they put them together right? Which was
the implication, I think, is that they were too good of tapers. They bought too good of Scotch tape.
They bought name brand Scotch tape, right? Yeah, no, they wanted the Walgreens brand. No, that makes sense.
Yeah, or I'm sure there's an old Trump tape that they should have been using.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, like after the steaks or the bottles of water or whatever. Very good.
Yeah, Trump tape.
Trump.
But they were fired, and they are now unemployed, and they're not young, so they are kind of upset and confused, and their job experience now is fairly unique.
That is. Are you suggesting that on a resume that's not like that doesn't like jump out as a highly employable person? The taper together of Trump notes.
Well, I feel like there are certain things like remember when they were investigating Enron, I'm sure they could have used them when they went into the office and the whole all the papers were in shreds. They probably are experts at that now.
That's probably true. Like, they're basically just like really good puzzle doers, right? Like
remember in Argo?
Yes,
in Argo,
right.
It took them like days to. The hostages would have been killed in like seconds if they were the guys in
Argo
doing it.
Who have to put together the shredded paper. All right, what else are blogs saying, Josh?
Well, there's a nice little a sports conspiracy blog that what blogs are saying that as you know, Justify won the Triple Crown.
And
the owner Bob Baffert actually owned another horse in the race, and there are conspiracies that horse was ordered to block the contender.
Yeah, no, I read this because, like, supposedly this horse, like the traditional strategy for that kind of horse would be to like come out slow, but it actually like ran out as fast as it could. Is this the same story?
Yes.
Okay. Now, all right, what are blogs saying?
Yeah. Well, blogs are saying that like this was clearly a deliberate conspiracy to ensure Justify won the Triple Crown, because now Justify supposedly is worth upwards of $75 million in stud fees.
Doesn't George Soros also own part of that horse?
It could be. I do tend to blame the Soroses. So here's a question that maybe the blogs are addressing, or maybe they're not. In other racing sports, these kind of tactics are actually allowed or encouraged. So like the example that comes to mind is in bike racing. A lesser cyclist will often ride in front of the ace cyclist, and the better cyclist will draft and sort of like conserve energy and then like slingshot around to like actually win the race. Is this explicitly not allowed in horse racing to have like teammates on the track?
Well, blogs aren't really talking about the specific rules, but
okay.
I think they're more focused on. See, you're focusing. That's a medal. That's human on a inanimate object.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a different expectation when the human is on a living being that there'll be more honor involved.
So the chivalry of horse riding, horsemanship.
Yes, there's horsemanship, and
I imagine there are rules, but I also imagine that the blog's just sort of assuming this is illegal.
Yeah, which is fair. I mean, most blogs don't really, unless you're a horse blog, which frankly they've been struggling in the recent years. They're not up to date on the rules.
No, I would agree. You're correct. So much like this segment, they're just dipping into this story and have no idea what they're talking about. All right, lightning round. Now, I was gonna try to make a lightning sound effect, but there's no. The lightning. It's always a thunder sound effect. So we've got the budget for the for the theme song, not the thunder sound effect. Lightning round, Josh. Give us a couple other things the blogs are saying.
Well, blogs are in a competition to describe how there's this photo from the G7 summit where Trump is sitting in a chair, being sternly chided by a standing Angela Merkel.
Yeah. Merkel is like staring at him, but all the other guys are too, right? Like Abe's got his arms crossed, and the whole gang is.
Abe's got his arms crossed, and there's a competition on what blogs are saying to describe what this photo is most like. And is this Da Vinci? Is this
right? Which classical composition this is most similar to? Is there have you found one that's satisfying, or is it just, or are blogs just debating?
Honestly, blogs are just debating. I didn't see any too good response that I could repeat that I would feel is worth it.
Is worth our listeners' valuable time.
I'm not here to embarrass
blogs.
What else? Blogs are also pretty upset about the voting decision today. The one out of Ohio that lets people off the rolls. Yeah, that lets people off the rolls.
Inactive voters.
Now, blogs aren't really. Yeah, sorry. So basically, the simple decision was, it's now legal to remove voters who have not voted in 2 consecutive federal elections from state voting rolls.
Yeah, that seems obviously anti-democratic, right? Like, what is the argument? What's the argument for doing that?
There's another competition on what blogs are saying as to, what is this mean our country is finally doomed, or is this just another step in the negative blogs? The negative blogs.
What are the positive blogs these days? What are they like?
They're kind of negative too, but it's just a little less negative. So I call them the positive blog.
It's right. It's all on a sliding scale, and the scale has slid. Any last Max Thunder round updates to finish us with?
Honestly, that might have been most of what blogs were about. I mean, just a lot of that, a lot of Trudeau's eyebrows. I'm sorry. It was revealed that Trudeau has a fake eyebrow.
Like a prosthetic?
It's just like a fake eyebrow. His eyebrow was falling off in a photo.
So like a toupee for an eyebrow.
Yeah, and a lot of people thought this could have been the moment Trudeau, took over the world stage from Trump as the leader of the free world. But unfortunately, this eyebrow incident, to blogs, it's a big deal. Not a fake eyebrow.
That does sound like something blogs will spend a lot of time on. All right.
Yeah, I mean, it really delegitimized him in the eyes of most blogs, even the positive blogs.
Well, not to go too long, but one of his main credentials is that he is dreamy, right? Like that is very high on his list of virtues. And I know he has his fans, but there are others who suggest that his other virtues are maybe more limited than you think they are. But he is dreamy. Minus one eyebrow, I feel like he could make it work. I mean, I feel like if any world leader could get by with one eyebrow, it's Justin Trudeau, and so there might be some justice to this. Josh, thank you very much for coming on and informing us as to what blogs are saying. We got the theme song, so we don't need to make any pitches for interaction based on that. But later in the summer, we're going to have the first ever What Blogs Are Saying with Josh Moff's meetup in the Brookline area. If you tweet out that you want to attend and you tag me at Media Studies or Max Thunder at Maximillionaire, then we will buy you a drink at this meetup whenever it happens in Brookline. So, and Josh, you'll make it, I take it?
I most likely, unless blogs are really busy, and then I'll have to read them.
Fair enough. If only there were a way to read blogs while at a bar. All right.
I read on my desktop.
Of course you do. That's the only way to read blogs. He's a purist. All right. So thanks to Josh. Thanks to Max Thunder. And me and Max Inhofe will be back next segment with an interview with Terence Moore. Now it's our pleasure to welcome Terence Moore to the show. Terence is an Atlanta-based national sports columnist and commentator. He is also a visiting professor of journalism at Miami University in Ohio. Terence, welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Well, thank you for having me.
So we've had a resurgence of stories about the intersection of sports and politics, and one of the flashpoints has been the question of champion teams visiting the White House. We had the Eagles being disinvited. We had, I believe it was LeBron saying that nobody, no matter who won the recently completed NBA Finals, neither team would attend a ceremony at the White House. You've written about this. You've got some interesting perspectives on it. Can you just tell me in general, what are your thoughts on the practice of sports teams visiting the White House? And then we can talk more about these current events. What do you think in general about this tradition?
Well, I wrote something earlier this year for CNN.com, and that's one of the entities I work for, where I just said flatly that no athlete, no sports team should visit the White House until this current administration leaves, because it's just too many controversies. In the past, and as you probably know, this whole thing started with Ronald Reagan back in the early 80s, and it was a fun thing, and everybody had a good time going there, and it kind of lasted as a sort of a non-controversial affair for decades, and it shouldn't be controversial. But this White House has turned it into a very political type of thing, and my feeling is that until the next administration comes, everybody should follow the lead of Steph Curry and Tom Brady, who ironically is one of Donald Trump's guys, by just saying, "Look, we don't want to go to the White House," and now you got LeBron involved. It should not be the case. Certainly not currently.
I mean, what do you see the use of this sort of this controversy to the current White House? It seems that the president is all too happy to bring this up. When he disinvites the Eagles, it seems like he's very happy to talk about it and have that take over a news cycle. What do you see the sort of politics that are being played here by the White House?
Well, I mean, let's be blunt about it. It's racial politics. I mean, that's all it is. Because, obviously you have white players in the National Football League. You have white players in the NBA. But, this is primarily an NBA and NFL thing when it comes to the White House and Donald Trump disinviting teams. And those two sports are predominantly, African-American players are the most prominent. And it's the old dog whistle to his base, and it's so obvious that it's not even. And one of the frustrating things is when you hear people, even in our business and the media, try to talk around it like it's something else, and it goes back to the old cliche of walking like a dog, like a duck, talking like a duck. It's a duck. I mean, this is a duck. I mean, there's nothing more to it than just that. It's Donald Trump realizing he can take this issue, flip it around, and make his base very, very happy.
No, that's a pretty compelling case. A related issue, right? Of course, being the national anthem protests.
Yes.
What do you make of the feigned ignorance by the president and by defenders regarding the purpose of the protests? Right. So, just what do you think of that?
Well, I mean, they get it, and there's no doubt about it. When I say they, I'm talking about the president gets it, the people around him get it, the congressmen get it. They all get it. But again, we're talking about midterms coming up. This is a good time to take advantage of it that way. Now, the unfortunate thing is that obviously many of their base doesn't get it, and that's why they continue to do this, because otherwise there would be no reason to continue this charade that everybody knows is false. You've got to let's take the Philadelphia Eagles, for instance. The Philadelphia Eagles did not have a player kneel or sit during the national anthem last year. Yet the president has flipped this around to make it seem as if the Eagles in particular are one of the biggest culprits in the National Football League in regards to this, which just tells you that he's got to know that that's not true. But they continue it because it works.
And by continue, you mean the charade that this is some sort of spitting on the flag or it's against the troops or something, as opposed to a social justice protest?
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And the one group that we can't leave out of the discussion here too are the NFL owners. They know better too. And the NFL owners, for the listeners who don't know, the overwhelming majority of them, and that's being kind, let's say probably 99% of the 32 NFL owners, 31 because Green Bay Packers are actually owned by the community, but they are Republicans, and many of them gave big money to Donald Trump during the last presidential campaign. So they feel as if they can't really come out and against him publicly. But as you probably know, the secret tape recordings came out of their private meetings, supposedly, the owners, talking about what to do with the flag controversy. And this was back in October. And several of them weren't very kind when talking about Donald Trump, the guy that they supported. But when it comes to publicly, they're basically cowards, and that's just making the whole situation much worse.
What do you think are the economic stakes to it? Is their cowardice motivated by what will line their pockets, that they're afraid of alienating the sort of broader, primarily white part of the football fandom who sort of buys into the Trump rhetoric? What are the financial potential dangers of these owners when they try to skate on this really thin ice with this issue?
Well, let's put it this way: the National Football League last year was slated to make $14 billion with a B dollars. That's a pretty good chunk. So none of these guys are going to be in a suit line anytime soon. Okay, but the thing that really got their attention, they being the NFL owners, is the TV ratings started to drop, and they were off by 10%. Which is a pretty big chunk.
Yeah, it's huge.
Particularly when it is, and you're talking about a league that lives by television. And it really became into to the modern age with the famous game in 1958 between the Baltimore Colts and the New York Giants because of television. That was the championship game, and it's been living off of television ever since. So that's what's happening here. Everything in this country, as we all know, it goes back to money and finances. They fear financially they're going to be hurt because they know one tweet from the guy in the Oval Office could change their entire financial situation. At least that's the way they look at it. Now, here's the way I look at it: that if they would just stick to their guns, and I'm talking about they being the NFL owners and also the players, and just ignore the tweets and ignore the guy in the White House making the calling players SOBs or what have you, then that would go a long way towards solving this whole thing.
So, short of that, or inclusive of that, turning down these invitations, do you think that the players have? Are they using their platform to the fullest extent that it's available to them? I see more and more players kind of specifically stepping out and making comments. I guess my question is, do you think we will see more aggressive efforts of expression over the next, let's say, NFL season?
I do believe we will, and that brings us to another thing about how the NFL owners blew it. They had their spring meetings here in Atlanta a few weeks ago. And they finally got around to the elephant in the room, and that is how to address the controversy of the last couple of years created by Colin Kaepernick, and the quarterback for the 49ers who first triggered all this, and how to address the issue of players protesting social injustice, and that's what it's all about, by the way, not what Donald Trump and everybody else is saying is about the disrespecting the troops and all that garbage. So they finally got around in the spring meetings here a couple weeks ago trying to figure out how to address this. So the way they went about it was, the owners, they decided to say, okay, any player that does not want to stand for the national anthem can stay in the locker room and not come out. That's part one.
That's so silly. It's just such a ridiculous
it really
approach.
Is.
Yeah, no. Continue. I'm sorry to interrupt, but that is such a sophomoric approach to solving a problem. It's dumbfounding. Sure, and then it gets even worse. And then if you do come out, you've got to stand there like an action figure of the old days in the military. Those little stationary plastic soldiers, and as they say. You can't disrespect the national anthem, which is open-ended, or if you violate that, then your team can be fined, and your team has the ability to fine you. Now, what is interesting here is they did not specify how much the fine was. Okay, they didn't give any orders to or any marching orders to the teams as to what they should do in these situations. And the biggest thing is, the owners didn't even vote on this.
They just basically just said, well, this is what we're going to do. What do you all think? And I guess they all looked around the room and just kind of like nodded, like, okay, let's go ahead and do this thing. Now, here's the thing that tells you about how just wrong-headed this entire thing is. There was a very simple solution here, and all the owners had to do was go back to the future. I've been covering the National Football League since 1978, and I can remember for years and decades, you never saw a player on the sidelines during the national anthem, and barely during Super Bowls. I've covered 30 Super Bowls. This is just a recent phenomena that started in 2009, and it all came about because the Department of Defense began paying the National Football League for patriotism.
Right.
And so that's why they feel obligated that the players have got to do this thing. But the solution would be go back to prior to 2009 and just tell everybody to stay in the locker room. And by the way, Matt, in college football, most teams stay in the locker rooms.
Yeah.
They don't come out in college football.
No, and if the way they do it now is obviously compulsory and the solution you offer. I don't know if you could put the genie back in the bottle, but you draw a great point out, right? This all started with a sort of confluence of big money and military might, and sort of this was not about the honest expression of anybody's feelings, right? This was about the military paying for flyovers and for performance of patriotism. It's a really good point that you make, and it sounds to me that the dynamic you describe, we are going to just get increased expression. You cannot bottle up, especially these days, but really never. But especially now, you cannot bottle up people from saying what they want to. I think my guess is that history is on the side of the players. In summary, do you agree with me?
It is.
Yeah. Yeah,
and there's no doubt about it. What's going to happen here this year? And going back to fully answer your question that you just asked, is that this is going to make the situation worse, because once you tell these players that you got to stay in the locker room, and if you don't want to stand for the national anthem, if you have strong convictions, which most of these players do, the ones that are for social justice and anti-discrimination of police brutality and those type of things, they're going to come out on the field, and they're still going to kneel and sit and do the things they were doing before, probably even more so out of defiance.
Yeah, no, I think that's right, and we'll see the interviews that they give, and it'll be interesting, and we'll see how long it takes till we have another basketball or football team at the White House. Terence, thank you so much for joining us here on the Benjamin Dixon Show. How can people reach out to you?
Well, you can go to my website, tmoresports.com. I've got videos, I got blogs, I've got podcasts on that site, and you can also reach me by email there and it's right there on the site.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, Terence, a national columnist based in Atlanta. So that's going to do it for our show today. I want to thank Ben for having us in to guest host for him. I want to thank Max for joining us, both Max Inhofe and Max Thunder. I want to thank Josh for coming on, tell us what blogs are saying, and Terence Moore for talking to us about sports and politics. If you want to catch Max online, what should they do, Max?
I'm on Twitter at MaxMillionaire. I
am at Media Studied. During the What Blogs Are Saying segment, I mentioned that we're planning a meetup for the many fans of What Blogs Are Saying with Josh Moss. I kept saying Brookline. That's Brookline, Massachusetts, right outside of Boston. If you send a tweet to me or Max saying that you're interested in the meetup, then we will buy you a drink at the mid to low range bar that we choose to host this event at. And we'll try to get Josh in, and we'll invite Ben, and he will send us one of those emojis with the like tears coming out, like he's laughing so hard. All right, so that's gonna, like I said, that's gonna do it. Ben will be back soon. I think probably tomorrow. All right, bye.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.